We'll be together again. What is that song?
It's like, I'm just dancing, I don't know what you're singing.
Hello, I'm Eric from Lonesome Reader, and I'm here with Anna again. Yay!
Woo, I'm back.
Just as way of introduction, I'm sure you all know Anna already. Anna James, who has the great Booktube channel, Case for Books, which I'll link in the description below. Author and journalist and fashion queen. And no, it's like one of the reasons I love following you on social media is because in addition to all of your like wonderful thoughts about like books and the reading life and the writing life is like every once in a while you get a great new dress that you post and I'm like, oh wow, she looks amazing. That's like, it's really fun.
More effort today.
So, have you been watching the new America's Next Top Model?
Obviously, yes.
Okay, yeah, of course, yeah. It's just like, I was so surprised the other day, I just saw it was on and I was like, I thought it was done, but Tyra's back.
I know, it is my, again, I don't like the concept of guilty pleasures because you enjoy something and it's not harming anyone, then don't feel guilty, but it is. I have watched every single series of it. I love it so much.
So pleasurable, yes.
Yeah. It's so ridiculous.
It is.
Yeah.
Next level fierceness.
Next level fierce.
Anyway, but we're here to talk about one of our favorite book awards, which is coming up. And I think it's fair to say that we're like super fans of this like book prize. And I get so excited every year reading all the books, talking about all the books, debating about all the books. Yeah. It's just like, really good. So, of course, we're talking about the Women's Prize for Fiction.
Yes, which is officially called the Women's Prize this year.
Okay,
so it's
just the Women's Prize.
Might have known as the Orange Prize or the
Bailey's Prize, as it was last year.
Which is now the Women's Prize because it's being sponsored by a kind of conglomerate of different sponsors. There's not one kind of... Because I think Bailey's are still involved.
Bailey's are still involved, but there's other,
well.
Which I don't know how you feel about, but I think it's really great that it's just going to be called the Women's Prize.
Yeah.
Like I know that that's how it works with book prizes. They need sponsors in order to keep them going. But yeah, it just that's what it is. So that's what it should be called, and hopefully it'll just stay that way. It'll just be the Women's Prize from now on. So the long list for that prize is going to be announced on March 8th. Mm-hmm. And so we thought it would be fun to give like a broad overview of like what might be eligible, what might be up for the prize, just to give people an idea because I know a lot of people in America are fans of the prize and aren't necessarily aware of UK publishing schedules.
Particular
and so
hi to Jennifer. On that
big part of the reason why we're doing this is because Jennifer from the wonderful Booktube channel, insert literary pun here.
She's so good.
Yeah, she's sort of prompting me saying like, are you going to do another video? It's like, yes.
So we're going to kind of, I don't know, we did this last year where we kind of we wrote down our pick. So there's 16 books on the long list. We don't know what each other's picked. So we're going to see how many match up. I would say that you've picked books you've read. Mm-hmm. And I picked a mix of books I've read and books I think will be there, partly because I didn't read loads at the end of last year and I feel like quite a lot of the eligible stuff has passed me by. So mine is a mix of personal kind of things and then some things that I think have a good shot. So
which is fair, and I think that makes it an interesting mix because it's going to be things that are sort of lauded that people have been saying are great.
I probably get more right than I usually do, and it's just like normally it's a list of my favourite books and none of them are there. So I have actually erred towards ones that are sort of high up my to read list and ones that do actually appeal, and I would like an excuse to read. So you're sort of like hoping I'll be on the list because it'll like push us to be like, it's always a nice opportunity actually, isn't it?
It is.
Sometimes sort of just the sheer quantity of books that come out. There's always every year loads that pass you by, and part of the reason that prizes are nice is because it gives you an excuse to go back and read some slightly older stuff that you've missed. And I also love how inevitably every year, even though no matter how well read I think I am, there's like a few books on there that I'm like, I've never heard of that. I don't no idea. So it'll be interesting with our lists because I think I'm most certain that there's two which we'll have in common. Okay, I definitely won.
And I think I know what your first one might be, but anyway.
Oh, no, there's another one before that one.
Oh, okay.
I think if I know which one, the one I've been talking about recently.
Maybe we should just get into them rather than
so my first thing that I've got, because we're going alphabetically, that's how we're doing it. So my first pick is actually The Idiot by Elif Boatman.
Right, yeah.
Which I read the beginning of and loved, and it's really huge, and I ran out of time, and I know so many people whose taste I trust who Loved it. And I think it's quite like, I feel like from what I've heard about it, it's that like mix of, I feel like it feels quite a Baileys-y book.
Right.
Which, who knows, as much as you can say what that is. I feel like because it's about a young woman and it's sort of very well written, but it's, got a proper plot.
Well, that was your justification for, thinking last year that The Power would win, and that led you very well. So, you never know. But I totally forgot about that book. Yeah, it had, like, been on my radar, but then, like you said, it's a long book, and so it just sort of passed me by. And
so I feel like we need to offer a provide that we did look up the eligibility criteria, but there is always a chance that we've got it wrong and we've got a pub date wrong or something wrong. So don't...
We're sort of counting books from the beginning of April last year to the end of March this year, because I think that's how the schedule went the previous year of what was eligible.
That's the usual window, but
who
don't
knows?
get cross with it if it's wrong.
So my first pick up in the bees is Happy by Nicola Barker.
I so nearly put this on, but I think... So I wonder if it's more of a Booker book though than a Baileys book, because it's like I haven't read this one, but
although it wasn't even longlisted for the Booker Prize because it came out. I think it came out in July or August last year, so it would have been eligible for. But it didn't win the Goldsmiths Prize last year
because it's super weird, isn't it?
It is super weird, especially after I think after in the second half of the book, it just goes wild. But I really loved it. I got sucked into the story, and even though the structure is crazy, but it sort of like makes sense. And if you're it depends on your mood. If you like go into it prepared for that journey, to just let it take you wherever. So if for those of you who don't know, it's a like post-apocalyptic novel because it's set in a future time when after a big apocalypse has happened, and then it's in this new time of like stability, a sort of hive consciousness that everyone is toned into that makes them happy, or does it? And so it goes into all that.
Okay, my next one is the one I think you can predict.
Yeah.
Which is The Immortalists by Chloe Benjamin.
Which I just know from following your Twitter feed recently that
a lot about it. I feel like I have read recently like a lot of books that I thought were good and were interesting, and then this was the first book I read in a couple of weeks that I just completely got absorbed in it, just like as a reader. Like it's one of those books that when I wasn't reading it was like burning a hole in my handbag, and I just wanted to be reading it the whole time. I read it really quickly. It's about 4 siblings in New York in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s, who go to a fortune teller, and she tells them the day they're going to die, and it's about whether they choose to believe her, and basically if you know when you're going to die, how does it affect the way you choose to live?
Right, yeah.
And I thought it was beautifully written. It made me cry a lot. It's quite sad, predictably, but it also is really hopeful and wise, and just grappling with sort of obviously big ideas about life and death, but in a really non-pretentious way. Above all, it's a really lovely story of these 4 siblings. Also, I love sibling stories. I've seen quite a lot of comparisons with A Little Life, but I did not get on with A Little Life. I can see, like, it's one of those ones that on paper I can see
contentious novel
there's comparisons, but I think in tone it's very different. Actually, I'm super interested if you've read A Little Life and if you read The Immortalists, because I do keep seeing that comparison. I think it's one that is on paper, I get it, but I think it's quite off what people thought. But I just loved reading it. And you know, however much you read like clever books or interesting books, sometimes you just it's just
want that reading experience that you just love. And
I just was so engrossed in it from start to end. So also, I love a book that I love a good cathartic cry.
Absolutely. I had one of those recently, which is another one of my choices that I'll talk about in a minute. My next choice is Manhattan Beach by Jennifer Egan.
Oh, which I do have.
Oh, okay. Ooh, I wasn't expecting that crossover.
But I haven't read it.
So I guess that's why I didn't predict it.
But I want to, and I've got like a few before that, but I did pick that one. I really want to read this, and I've heard nothing but incredible things about it.
It's a great historical novel,
Scott is
and
amazing. So
I haven't read anything else by Jennifer Egan.
Okay.
Although like I read an anthology that she edited, but yeah, this is the first work of fiction I've read by her, and it's just a great historical novel about World War II and a woman who is trying to become a diver in the army because all the men are away fighting, and so the women are working in the yards building the ships, and so it's about the like sexism she encounters trying to become a diver, but also this like gang leader and the relationship they have with each other, with like the girl's father, a link in between them, and how that like links them together, and normally I wouldn't be interested in like gang stories, but the way she writes about this and the way she writes about their relationship and in this time period, it's I loved it. Yeah,
okay.
It's a great
historical novel. It's another one that I would love. A reason to read. My
next one is The Night Brother by Rosie Garland. Have you heard of this?
I haven't heard of this one.
Okay, yeah. It was out by Burrow Press last summer, I think. And I love this novel. I just sort of like came to it and I came to it late. I read it late on last year, and it's sort of set in the Victorian period, and it's about a character who sort of switches gender by day. She lives as a girl, and by night becomes a boy, like actually physically transforms,
like Orlando
into a boy. Yeah,
that's sort of one of my favorite novels. So
right, yeah. So yeah, obviously, yeah, it has a nod to that, and but is written much more in a like historical novel type style, because she's also writing about the women's rights movement around that time, and yeah, it's beautiful, and the way she writes about it, I mean, that might seem quite like gimmicky, writing about this character that changes sexes like that, and has this internal battle between a male and a female side, but like she does it so well. Yeah, I think it's great and really imaginative and fun, as well as talking about some really interesting issues about like gender and
Okay, so. That's very. I want to read that. That's. Right. I hope. Yeah, I feel like I'm going to read that one, even if it's not. Long.
Good. Yeah, I think you'd find it really interesting.
Okay. Next is What We Lose by Zinzi Clemens.
Oh right, yeah, which I have and I haven't read yet.
It's really, really good. I read it late last year when I was desperately trying to get through as much as possible, and it's quite short, so I read it and I was so glad that I did. It's about a young woman dealing with grief and race and sexism, and it's told in a really interesting structure. It's very, very short chapters. There's a few kind of like photographs or like a different format of like letters to people and stuff like that. It's really affecting. The writing is beautiful, and it's almost like it's just like this snapshot, like you just get super absorbed in it, and the structure really works, and I found it incredibly thought-provoking and moving.
I wanted to read it, but I was a bit hesitant because I've heard mixed things about it. I've heard mixed reactions to it, so whenever that happens, I'm just like, and have this stack that I'm like, oh, what am I going to get to? Maybe. Yeah. But I would love if it was on and I had an excuse.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talked about this because there's another book that you asked me if I'd read, and I have it on my to-read pile, and then I say, well, one person told me that they didn't love it. And I think the thing is, when you do have loads and loads of books to read, if one person, particularly if someone that you trust tells you they didn't love it, it's just a way of deciding what to read, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a little bit scary when you think about it.
Yeah, as you feel like you shouldn't be that.
Yeah, but if you have two books and one person says, I didn't love it, then you're like, well, I guess I'll try the other one. But, well, I really enjoyed this one. A little bit reminded me of Department of Speculation.
Oh, okay.
In the very short sections, and very much just like a snapshot on a bit of life. But actually, there's another book that I'm going to mention that reminds me of that even more.
Me too. I was just going to say there's another book on my list that I was going to make that comparison with too. So maybe it'll be the same book.
Because there's a different book that's even more like Department of Speculation. But I did think this had I do think if you like Department of Speculation, you would like What We Lose. But yeah, I imagine it's the same book.
Probably,
because if you've read it, you definitely, I don't know if you've read it, it's one of the best books I've read in ages. So.
You'll probably guess that I was going to pick this. Sight by Jessie Greengrass, her debut novel.
I forgot. Okay, yeah, no, I agree with this one. I should have included this one. Yeah.
I assume you haven't read it yet.
I read a early manuscript of it.
Oh, okay.
Over a year ago, but I loved it. But that's why I'd forgotten about it, because I read a manuscript so long ago. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only just been published.
The manuscript was incredible, so goodness knows how good it is now it's been edited. Yeah, basically.
I think it's brilliant, and like I don't need to go into like how much I love it because I made a whole video predicting that it'll win the Booker this year, which I know is a very like ballsy prediction to make. But like, you know, why not? It's fun. It's just like.
Okay.
But I think it's so brilliant. I think she's such a fascinating new writer, and yeah, I hope it gets lots of attention. So I hope it's on this list.
Okay, right. I'm gonna retroactively add Sight to my list. And I'm not gonna take one out.
Okay.
Is it me?
Cheating.
Yeah. Unashamedly. Right. This one is a really like. I feel like this is me being a bit like. I haven't read this. I don't really have other than it's The Lie of the Land by Amanda Craig.
Oh right, yeah.
Because I feel like everyone again. This is a bit of a, this is me being very just sort of trying to think about it objectively. I don't know a lot about it other than it's about Brexit, isn't it? Or it's about like
sort of,
Britain and politics and stuff. So it feels very topical. Also, I feel like it's very well reviewed.
Yeah.
So I feel like the combination of that means it presumably is one that's in the mix.
Yeah.
So that's very unemotional. That's not really a pitch for it. I'll get rid of that one and put Sight in. But I do actually think that this must be one that they're talking about because it was very well reviewed and it seems quite topical. So
I think that's a really good choice. Yeah. Well, it's another one it's quite long and so probably it makes it hard to get to sometimes when you have to make that choice.
I feel like lots nowadays books are either very short or very long, and
it does seem that way, doesn't it?
You don't just get like a regular 300-page novel anymore. Like everything is weird and experimental and short or like epic.
Right. Yeah. My next choice, When I Hit You by Meena.
I've got this one.
Kandasamy.
There we go.
Or A Portrait of the Writer as a Young Wife. Yay, okay, good. I wasn't sure if that would be on your radar if you read it or like it.
I haven't read it, but I keep meaning to. Also because Elizabeth Preston, who does the events at Waterstones Gower Street, and his friend of mine raved about it.
She has great taste in books.
Very good taste. You should follow her on Twitter because she knows what she's talking about.
She does.
And she said it was brilliant. And
program's great.
You said it was brilliant, so.
Yeah, one of my top books of last year, and it's and it is very sad because it's all about the process of domestic abuse, and particularly from the point of view of an educated Eastern woman, and so it gives that whole perspective, and but like in a totally new way. Like it's weird because it like almost treads the line between fiction and essay because she's very thoughtful in it, but like it doesn't. But because it's so personal that like it doesn't, you don't feel like you're reading an essay. You're like just totally immersed in her story and her journey and her point of view, and so I think it's extraordinary.
Again, this is another one that you mustn't have, but it's Birdcage Walk by Helen Dunmore.
Oh right, okay.
Which I haven't read, but Helen Dunmore obviously very sadly died last year, and she won the very first Bailey's Prize. And I feel like... And
she just won the Costa Prize for her book of poetry.
And I feel like it, not because of that, but I feel like she's a wonderful writer, and the combination of all of those things might mean that
people
it'd be a nice way to
honour her.
But I haven't read it.
No, I've neither, and I've not read anything by her, like really ashamed. I just bought her poetry collection because of the Costa. Good pick.
That's that.
My next one is... I think this might be the one that we were talking about before. Goodbye Vitamin by Rachel Kahn.
No.
Or Goodbye Vitamin.
Okay. No, but this is another one that I nearly put on.
Okay. Wow. So you were talking... Because this is the one I was going to compare to Department of Speculation.
Okay, no, I have a different one that I'm going to compare to.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because like, the tone of it is like it's written from the point of view of a woman dealing with her... who goes back and lives with her parents because her father is experiencing dementia, and it's written in that very way where it's very just sort of like almost impressionistic, like diary type accounts of daily life, and so in like the day-to-day there's nothing particularly like significant in that, but that like pieces together to say something much bigger about the whole of like what's happening and just about family life and these characters' personal journeys and like so I thought it was so special.
Hey, my next one is one that I ummed and ahed about, but I have put it on there, and it's The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock by Imogen Hermes Gower.
Heard so much about this. I haven't read it.
It's really good, and I do think it's quite Sarah Watersy,
right? And
it really is. She writes beautifully, and I do think it has that kind of Sarah Waters combination of, it is a kind of like in many ways kind of bawdy historical romp, but it's got a lot going on, and it's written beautifully. The Bailey's Prize loves Sarah Waters. She gets shortlisted for every book she writes. So and it's very much in that like.
And I haven't heard it compared to Sarah Waters, so that makes me want to read it a lot more.
Oh, okay. I liked it an awful lot.
My next one is The Sealwoman's Gift by Sally Magnusson.
Okay. Haven't read it, have it on my shelf over there, and I have heard you and somebody else that I trust saying it's really good. Somebody else I trust said it was good on Twitter, so...
It is good. Trust me, it's really good. Yeah. And this is a book that recently gave me my like cathartic cry, because when I got to the end of it, I was literally bawling. I and I wasn't prepared for, because it took me on this whole historical journey, which I was really involved with, but then just towards the end, it just like emotionally hit me.
Right.
And yeah, I just like let it all out. And like, luckily I was at home alone, so like I didn't need to feel like ashamed I was on the tube, like weeping over this book. But it just really hit me. Just like amazing, fascinating story about a period of Icelandic history in the 1600s where a group of Turkish pirates stopped on the coast of Iceland and just stole a bunch of villagers, I think over 200 villagers, and took them back to Turkey and enslaved them. And there's a historical account of this from the point of view of a priest who was kidnapped. But this is from the priest's wife perspective. And so her husband actually went back quite early, but she was left in slavery for like almost 10 years before she was returned. Okay. So yeah, there's this whole period of her life, and there's no account of that, speculation on what might have been a woman's perspective in that time of something like that happening. I
feel like all the ones you picked I'm like very on board with and want to read. Right.
Well, we often agree with.
We do.
Yeah, good.
Next is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng.
Yes. Oh my God, why haven't I put that on my list?
Everyone's like, I just have only heard people raving about it.
Me too, yeah.
I feel like I just have only heard very good things about this.
Towards the end of last year, I was in America for a brief period, so I bought it when it was actually in shops. So like I had it and knew it was out, really wanting to get to it. And I don't know why I haven't got to it yet. And it's like, she's also wonderful on Twitter, Celestine. She posts lots of political tweets, but also lots of like fun tweets too, and also about like writing. And my next one is Kintu. I
should have thought that one.
Guess phonetically you would say Kintu, but Sean on Booktube corrected me, said it should be pronounced Kintu. Okay. So yeah.
I have
Ugandan
a
family
copy of
epic.
This, and sorry, I keep pointing over there, but I have my shelf of like proofs and stuff.
TBR bookshelf is over there, and it's family epic, but like in a different way, because it keeps being compared to Homegoing, but like in a different way that like it doesn't follow generation after generation of this family in Uganda, but shows this man in Uganda in the mid-1700s, follows his life for quite a while, and shows the fascinating like political landscape of that time and him navigating through that, and then jumps forward to the present day to show the lives of some of his ancestors and the many different sides of life in current day Uganda. I have to say, like, I sort of preferred the beginning of the book and the later historical period. It can be quite difficult to follow it sometimes because it goes into all these strands of family life, and you're like, wait, who's related to who? And also, like, throughout this family, it's a trait of their family that there's like twins in like every generation. So there's like twins in every, so you're trying to keep track of like all of these people, and yeah, it can be a bit difficult, although there is a family tree at the beginning of it.
Because I've just seen something else that I think has a very good chance, which is White Chrysanthemum by Marilyn Bracht, which I think is eligible. It's very, very good.
I don't know anything about that.
It's about two Korean sisters who are diving, and the Japanese soldiers come and kidnap the older sister as a comfort woman. And it traces what happens to the older sister, as obviously it's historical, what happens to her, and then it is in the modern day with the younger sister who never found out what happened to her sister. And it's beautiful, it's incredibly moving.
And you're cheating again, that you're trying to like put things that stop looking over there.
I know, I just keep noticing. I haven't done this very well, obviously. Some of the ones that are like a bit more like, I pick because I've heard good things. I could happily like get rid of them for things that I've read and enjoyed. So this is my one that I compared to Department Speculation, which is Fire Sermon by Jamie Quattro.
Oh, okay.
Have you read this?
I have.
Oh, okay.
I loved it.
I thought this was so good. I can't stop thinking about it. It's about a young religious woman who gets married, and then she is in kind of like a essentially happy marriage. There's issues, but it's not. And she has 2 kids, and then she starts writing to this poet that she has come across that she admires, and they have a affair of words to start with. And it's not really a spoiler. It happens very early on in the book that something physical happens. And then it's basically what she does, and it's about the balance between sort of loyalty and security with passion and love, and it's also deals a lot with her religious faith, which I thought was so interesting, because often religious people in books nowadays are kind of maniacs and baddies, and it's used to signify that someone's bad. And I thought it was really interesting to have like a really intelligent look at what it means to have faith. I grew up super religious, and I'm not anymore, and I find it really, I thought it was really refreshing to have like that sort of looked at from such an intelligent point of view.
Absolutely.
And it's just, oh my goodness, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And it is, I thought it was quite department speculating.
Okay, yeah. I hadn't thought of that comparison before, but yeah.
Like a snapshot on a relationship or 2 relationships, and it's just really, I thought it was really good because the author never sort of tells you it's not clear what you're supposed to think. You know, it's not like you're signposted very clearly to think that she should stay with her husband or not. You know, it's very like. And she's sort of sympathetic from
both of her husband's point of view and the man she's having an affair with, and so it's not like you side and just say like, oh well, her husband is horrible, so you should leave her, but like you can. I just loved how it portrays that way of like a sexual disconnect in a long-term relationship, and which hasn't been done much, and also the like massive like intellectual desire that people can have this massive attraction to each other for like intellectual reasons, and connect on that level, because so much of their sort of affair is conducted through like emails and them talking about things that she just doesn't feel like she connects with her husband in that way, and it's so complex and moving, and I've talked about it a lot recently, so like I was sure that was going to be one of her. No, I did. There it is.
Okay,
I picked it too.
I'm glad you picked it. I was surprised that you didn't.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my next one.
Who's this gonna be?
I wonder. That is A Book of American Martyrs by Joyce Carol Oates. I'm so predictable. Sorry, but yes, this was out last summer. This is all about the issue of abortion in America. It shows it in a very dramatic way of this encounter in the 90s where an extremist Christian assassinates a abortion doctor.
Oh wow, okay.
And so that happens right at the beginning. That's not like a spoiler, and it goes on to show the repercussions of that both in both the men's lives, but also in the lives of their daughters, and how that affects them. Such a big issue in America, but she's like, I think, quite sympathetic in showing why people would have extremist opinions, like definitely not condoning them, but sympathetically showing like why someone might be sort of cornered into thinking these things. So it's I think it's extraordinary, and I'm always a big cheerleader for Joyce Carol Oates, but like particularly because like I think she's not just widely read in the UK very much. Being listed for a prize like this would like bring more attention in the UK to her writing, because I think she's a genius.
Okay. Next on my list is Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk by Kathleen Rooney.
Oh, I don't know this.
Which is published by Daunt Books.
Oh, okay.
And I loved it. It's one of my favourite books of last year. It's about an elderly woman who set on New Year's Eve, and basically it's her walking through New York, and it's a mix of the people she encounters on this one night with her sort of reminiscing about, she's very old, and it's her like reminiscing about her ex-husband and her son and people she met, and she was kind of one of the first like ad women. And she kind of I'm gonna blazed a trail. That's the phrase, is it? Blazed a trail.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, she was at the forefront of that. She was one of the first women to sort of be paid properly for doing that. And it's sort of about that, and then it's about a kind of meditation on getting old and family and marriages breaking down. But then it's also, she's so funny. This voice is told in her voice, and she's acerbic and funny. And she writes these little snapshots of encounters, and it's just beautiful. Like, it's so funny and it's so moving. And yeah, Daunt is a great publisher, but very small publisher.
From that description, I think I would love that book.
It's just lovely. It's such a nice balance of like, it's like sharp, but it's really lovely, and it's just, I very much enjoyed it.
When We Speak of Nothing by Olumide Popoola.
Not come across
Have you not heard
no.
of it? Okay, it's by Cassava, put out by Cassava Press,
cool, yeah.
who published a lot of African fiction in the UK. And this is about two teenage friends in London, and one of them has Nigerian roots, and the process of this character going back to Nigeria to try to reconnect with their father. And it's very much about gender and gender fluidity, gender confusion, and a lot about friendship. It's like such a good book about friendship. And it's particularly good about youth culture in London today that I think like a lot of young people would really connect with. So yeah, there's a lot in it about like language too, and trying to define what language is like appropriate for you, and how you want to take certain words and like give them your own meaning, and like and how words take on their own meaning when they're used in like a social context and with friends. And yeah, it's I think it's a really like fascinating, interesting, very different book that I would like to see have more attention.
Next, I have Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney.
It's on my list too.
Yay! It is just a brilliant debut. Oh, great. It's a brilliant debut that is just sharp and funny and clever and wise, and she's such an extraordinary writer. Like, she's really young, and it's a debut, and it's one of those books where you're just like, she's just very talented.
It's been getting a lot of attention. It was on it actually won the Sunday Times Young Writer of the Year award last year. And yeah, although I have to say, like, it took me a while to get into this book. I didn't love it from the off. So my next one is A Boy in Winter by Rachel Seffert.
I haven't come across this one.
She doesn't publish all that often. This came out last summer by Virago. It's a story of a Ukrainian town during World War II when the Nazis are marching in and sort of rounding up the Jewish population, and about two boys who, in the midst of people being rounded up, they sort of slip between the cracks. It follows the journey of what happens to them, and so it comes very much to the like personal crises of people in the village of like, well, do I be safe and like turn these boys away, or do I, extend my empathy and say like these are people in trouble, I should help them, and so, which, I mean, it feels like that story's been told a lot, but her writing is so beautiful. I love her writing so much.
Next on my list is Home Fire by Camilla Shamsi.
Yes.
Which I haven't read. This is another one that
I haven't read either, yeah. And should have been on the list. It's not on my list, but yeah.
She often is shortlisted for this prize.
So it's a good bet.
I've enjoyed what I've read of hers in the past, and it was very well reviewed. So it feels like
long-listed for the Booker.
Yeah, I got to interview her recently with Penelope Lively for the Penguin Women's Rights.
Yeah.
She was amazing. And I'm going to read this because after meeting her, I'm just a bit in awe of her. So.
And am I right in thinking, was she the one that sort of posed that challenge a couple of years ago that for publishers to publish only female authors throughout a year?
And the stories are doing it. Yeah. But that's it, I think.
Okay, my next one, which I assume is going to be a crossover, Winter by Ali Smith. Yay!
Of course.
Match. Ding ding.
Yay! Of course. I mean, obviously.
Obviously.
I mean, I thought it was even better than Autumn. Like, actually, I thought it took a little bit longer to get going, but I thought the second half was amazing. And the ending really got to me. So maybe that... No, okay.
I thought it was gripping from the beginning. I love the whole weird...
I mean in comparison to Autumn, not in comparison to, like, other people, because she's better than most other people. Yeah, no, in comparison to Autumn, I thought it took a little bit longer to get going, but she's so good. I'm so inarticulate when I'm talking about Ali Smith, because I just end up being like, she's so good.
Yeah.
But it's just...
We're huge fans.
So creative without ever losing, it's sort of experimental and creative without ever losing any emotional depth. And it's just the way that she balances that real sincerity and emotional impact with this kind of creative structure and beautiful writing is just extraordinary. And it's interesting comparing it to Autumn because obviously we're at a different point, and Autumn is much more hopeful, I would say. Certainly the ending. I don't want to. I mean, it's not really a spoiler.
Yeah, Winter's
book, but
definitely feels more like reflective and like
a bit more angry, I would say, as well.
Yeah.
Like the last few pages are quite like blistering, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like, and I just am so excited to read the next one. I just think she decided to do this project before the referendum even happened.
Yeah.
And I just think my one like silver lining of everything that's going on at the moment is at least we have Ali Smith.
Yeah.
Like telling stories about it, because I really think these four
and
books
chronicling these times, in such an extraordinary way.
Look back on it. People are going to read these books for hundreds of years to come as a way, both because they're brilliant, but also as a way of understanding this period in history. And I think that a silver lining to living through it is at least we get to live through Ali Smith reflecting on it in real time, which.
Although it's interesting, I've heard debates on both sides recently because I did this whole like book tab recently about like future classic books.
Okay.
And so some people answered that saying they thought Ali Smith would because she's encapsulating our feelings from this time period. But other people are like, well, it could go the other way because this could date quite quickly and and people in the future might not. Connect with it and that it might be a lot of the references might be too specific for the time period, but yeah, I don't agree with that really.
Future readers enough credit because I think part of the reason the books are so good is because although they're very much reflecting on contemporary history, there's all these universal stories in there, and she roots everything actually in references to other books, and there's so many references to other books and plays and art that I actually think.
Yeah, and just like Dickens, I mean, a lot of it is a play on Dickens.
Right.
And but just in Dickens books, there's a lot of specific references to the time period and that, but that hasn't,
I think it's that
stopped them being universal stories that people have.
Credit, like I'm pretty sure people are gonna like.
Yeah.
Also, it's Brexit.
Yeah, I can imagine future editions like having footnotes saying like this did actually happen in the House of Commons MP like barked at a female politician.
There might have to be
which
some
she
notes.
references,
Hopefully, because it doesn't actually happen, and so there'll be a whole note where it's like, we really did it, but we didn't, it's okay.
Which makes it so interesting as well, because like it's still all up in the air. So like,
wouldn't it be incredible if it did? Well, it'd be incredible if it didn't happen, just full stop. But wouldn't it be incredible if it didn't happen? It just in the perfect window of Ali Smith writing these novels.
Yeah.
Like so, Autumn is just after the referendum, and then the last one is reflecting on it all being stopped. We've stopped it. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah, that would be.
Time frame fit. If you could just sort that out.
Yeah, that would be perfect for Hamish Hamilton to
It'd be a really
nice thing to sell the books of that. It encapsulated a seasonal cycle in British history.
That'd be amazing. Wow. Okay, I think that's gonna happen. It's gonna stop so Ali Smith can reflect on it in summer. Anyway.
Anything is Possible by Elizabeth Strout.
Oh, is this eligible?
I'm pretty sure. I looked at it. I think it was okay.
Maybe I got it wrong there.
I think it was either late April or May last year.
Mistake, then. Okay.
So I'm pretty sure.
Okay, cool. No,
I might be wrong.
I imagine you are not.
But Elizabeth Strout, and I always feel like I can be like happy as a big cheerleader because she's from Maine and I'm from Maine, and so like it's like one of my people is this brilliant writer other than Stephen King. Like I can be proud of another writer.
Right, my penultimate pick is We That Are Young by Preeti Tangera.
Okay.
Sorry. Which is another one that so I've read the beginning of this. It's another one that's long. And I read the beginning of it and I really liked it. This is published by Galley Beggars.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
And it's their like big book for the year.
Okay,
and it's a retelling of King Lear set in India. And I thought it's me being lazy because it's like you have to concentrate a little bit on it and it's really long and I would it's another one I'd really love an excuse to sit and read it properly. I've got a soft spot for little retellings of things. Right. Last one.
Final one. Tin Man by Sarah Winman.
Oh, no, that's not mine.
But
is this long enough? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Because we realised that because we both would have had The End We Start From by Megan Hunter, but we think it's too short because novellas aren't eligible, and they class that as 30,000 words.
Yeah,
or
and
less,
I hadn't realised that.
Think, but we haven't obviously we don't actually know how many words.
Haven't counted the words in this, but I think it's long enough.
Okay, and we think Megan Hunter,
like.
But this is us officially saying if it's eligible, though it was on both of our original lists. But I do think
one of my books of the year last year.
I do think it's probably too short.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
But I think Tin Man would be long enough,
Okay.
and yeah, I just love, like so many people. I love this novel so much, and one of the few books that I like. I couldn't write about it on my blog last year because. Like, I had so many emotions and feelings about it. I sat down literally for like 2 or 3 hours trying to write a blog post about it and found I couldn't do it because I just felt like I couldn't get it right, like encapsulate what I really felt about it. I think it's such an extraordinary novel. I know not everybody agrees. I have heard criticism of it. I think it's great. I think her writing is amazing, and yeah, it's a story told in a way that unlike I've read before. So have you read it?
No.
Okay.
Sorry. I feel like it's one of those ones that I don't know why I didn't read it, and it's really short. I just didn't.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, my last one is Sing and Buried Sing by Jessamine Ward.
Right, okay.
Which I've read the beginning of.
And I've read all of.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
it's not on my list.
That's really interesting because I read the beginning of it and I didn't immediately connect with it. But people kept telling me how good it was.
And I read it in December in that end of year scramble because everyone was saying like book of the year.
Right.
Not everybody, but like
I heard a lot of
people
which is why I
said
started
directly
it.
to me that
But I read the first chapter and I didn't immediately connect with it, but I just assumed that it would take a little bit to get going.
And it's a beautifully written book, and and I found it very moving in sections, but it didn't. I just didn't. It didn't like totally grip me and pull me in and make me think this is an amazing work of fiction. And it might just be that case of being overhyped, and so like my expectations were like
super high.
And so I felt like it's good, but I don't. But but it won the National Book Award. It's a very likely candidate.
So we both picked Fire Sermon, Winter, Conversations with Friends, When I Hit You, and Manhattan Beach. Fine.
Yeah,
that's not bad, is it? And I feel like as well, there was a couple of yours I hadn't heard of, but I feel like we had a lot of books where we were like, oh yeah, I should have put that one on. Oh yes, I want to read that one. Yeah. We're not gonna try and argue out a universalist.
Yeah, as we've already been talking long enough, but
and it's all a bit arbitrary, and it's all about
this is like any book published by a woman in English in the past year, so that publishing year, so the scope is so wide. But just to give you an idea of what books might be eligible, what you might see on the list on March 8th.
I reckon we've come up with a good pool that I reckon between the two of us, you should see some of these on the list.
I'll be very surprised if some of them aren't on the list.
So long list is announced on the
8th of March. Yeah.
And we will hopefully do a shortlist prediction.
Yeah.
Although it depends how many books they put on the long list. Because if it's loads and loads that I haven't read and they're all huge, I probably won't read them. But we'll probably have a go at predicting anyway. Yeah. And then hopefully doing winners. I always try and read the shortlist. So let us know what you think.
Yeah. Have you read any of these? Yeah, are there any we haven't mentioned that you happen to know have been published in the past year and you think might be on the list that you would really root for? Like, let us know in the comments below. And and if you've read any of these and would really cheer for them to be on, like, let us know. Or if you really disagree with us.
Yeah, cool. So we will see you again soon for a shortlist prediction.
Yes, thanks for watching, everyone.
Bye.
Happy reading. I was feeling you to say that. Like, happy reading.
I like it.
I got so self-conscious for a minute because there was this like squirrel on the fence that seemed to be like watching us. As I kept like looking over it, like, stop watching us.
Did you read The Portable Veblen?
I did, yes. Yeah, so maybe it's the like spirit of what's her name, Elizabeth
Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yeah. That